All right, we're about 3 minutes late. It's now 6:33. I'd like to call to order the Fenton Township Board meeting on this 5th day of April, 2022.
Recording in progress.
I ask everyone to please stand for the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Gopal, would you lead us, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. We ask for peace in the warring countries. Bless the sick, injured, and those who have passed as we pray for an end to the conflicts that exist today. We ask this in your most heavenly name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As always, Mark, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Lorraine,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
Contractor. Krug is present, Kessler,
Here.
Gopal,
Here.
Tucker.
Present.
You have a full board.
Thanks, Bob. I'd like to note for the record that our township attorney, Jack Belzer, operations manager, Tom Broker, well, I guess he just left.
He'll be back.
Zoning administrator, Mike Deem, and our assessor, Julia Wilson, yes, is with us tonight. Additionally, the following township officials are also present via Zoom. We have our engineers, Alan and Melissa Lawrence. Tom, will you detail the procedures for those attending tonight's virtual?
Well, I will slip in and come.
There you
back
go.
with Tom.
Bob, will you?
Hi, Tom. To the members of the public attending tonight's meeting in person or via Zoom, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and to be shown on public television, Spectrum Channel 191. Recorded meeting are also posted on the Fenton Area Community TV YouTube channel. The portions of the meeting where public comment is allowed, at which time further instruction will be given. For tonight's meeting, there are no public hearings, therefore all public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Meeting materials are available for download on the township website at www.fentontownship.org.
Thanks, Bob.
Yep.
All right, the first business in order is the approval of the agenda. Are there any requests to amend tonight's agenda? All right, a motion is in order to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support. All right, motion's been moved and supported. Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll? Oh, is there any further discussion?
Krug votes yes. Contract.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Gopal.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, the agenda stands approved as presented. Well, we do have a quarterly report by our Genesee County Sheriff, but we will move on since I don't think he's present at this time. All right, we'll move on to the next business in order, which is the meeting minutes. Included in the packet are the meeting minutes for the March 22nd regular meeting. Are there any corrections or requested revisions to these meeting minutes? All right, hearing none, the meeting minutes stand approved as presented. All right, moving on, the next business in order is expenditures. Are there any questions from the board regarding any of the invoices?
I did have a question. It's to Thomas. There's a bond payment, and I did not recognize the description as to what it was. If you would illuminate me. Something about capital improvements for,
He's gone.
oh. So I probably shouldn't be
He'll be
talking
right
to him
back.
then. Yeah, so, yeah, why don't we just keep moving along? He'll educate me when he gets back.
All right.
Unless somebody else knows what it is. I didn't recognize it as one of the normal things. I'm trying to scan to find it now. Recovery zone capital improvements.
I looked at it.
90,000, I don't know what.
We
it is.
reviewed them, but I honestly don't know what that was for.
Right, that was my only question.
Would you like to wait?
Nope,
You're okay to
Hold
approve?
on. Nope.
no,
You're okay?
Nope.
yeah, I'm okay.
You're okay to approve without?
Yep,
All right, a motion is in order to approve the expenditures totaling $436,045. Yep, Tom? John's got a question.
What's the
Before we-
recovery zone capital improvement bond? What is that?
Those are bonds we issued in 2010 that financed a paving project and our parking lot project. And they were recovery zone bonds, we get an interest credit back for every payment we make.
Okay. So paving projects on local roads or?
It was actually Ripley Road, which we've already
Ripley.
paved since then, but
Yeah, okay. I just didn't recognize the name. I thought I should have.
All right, I'll reintroduce the motion in order to approve the expenditures totaling $436,045.46 for payment.
So moved.
Support. All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Reed,
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
I vote yes. Contract.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, expenditures stand approved as presented. It looks like we have our sheriff has joined us this evening. We have a quarterly presentation tonight. I'm sure most Fenton Township residents know that we have contracted with the Genesee County Sheriff's Department for police protection and public safety for over 4 decades. Not only do they patrol our streets, they also have a presence on our lakes, keeping our residents safe. I've invited Sheriff Christopher Swanson to provide us with a quarterly report, and he has agreed to share information with us on a variety of topics. Tonight, he will discuss current crime statistics, the budget, and he will also entertain questions. Welcome, Sheriff Chris Swanson.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, to the residents here, those online, to the board. I come to you not only as your sheriff, but also a resident of Fenton Township, a very proud resident. So thank you for all the good work that you do from my family and I. I come here because I'm the people's sheriff, and we work for you. You are the client, but more importantly, we have business to make sure that it's done properly. So that's why I said whatever questions that you or anybody else have, I'll be happy to answer. But before I begin, I apologize. I know we mentioned for a 6 o'clock hard start, or 6:30 rather. And on the way here, I just finished an interview with Fox Detroit because I want to show the people of this township and this county that when you work with other agencies, not only in this county but also in other states, it really does bring to light that crime and victims and predators are not just within certain borders. You may have caught a story that we did about a week and a half ago. There's a gentleman that lived in West Palm Beach, Florida, and he's 22 years old. He met a 12-year-old, and that 12-year-old that he met online with Instagram, and many people use Instagram, he quickly turned to an app called Discord, and that Discord is a chat app. And for a period of a week to 10 days, he groomed this 12-year-old girl, convinced her that she could jump out of her window in the middle of the night, meet him at a parking lot, and he would take her to a hotel. That's exactly what he did. He came and he flew from West Palm Beach, Florida, right to Detroit Metro, drove up here, right up Fenton Township's US 23. Came right up to Mount Morris Township, picked her up at a church that he'd already pre-located, and at that point took her to the Baymont Hotel. He perpetrated an act against her and then dropped her back off in the parking lot, 12 years old. But he was in Michigan for 48 hours. And the reason I did the story with Fox Detroit is because when we were able to identify this victim through our SANE nurses at Hurley Hospital, from the time that we got notification to the time he was arrested in West Palm Beach, Florida, and next to Broward County, he had already done it to 2 more victims, one in Washington and one in Oregon. We were just made notified that because of that post that we did when he came off the plane in Metro Detroit, a victim on the West Coast did come forth, a 15-year-old. And we are working that case now with our friends in Washington at a particular county. And I say all that because you have somebody that's assigned to Fenton Township. You pay 60% for a detective. And that detective is Scott Pritchard right there. And when you talk about the benefit of contracting with the sheriff, you just don't get 5 deputies and a 60% of a detective. You get a battle-tested Marine that is a perfect fit for this township that comes to the board meeting to give stats because Scott helped work that case. And it doesn't have anything to do with Fenton Township as a victim, but it does have to do with the streets that you and I drive on every single day. And I'm proud to say that we're going to hold this guy accountable Other states are going to hold them accountable. Our GHOST team that has done operations right here in Fenton has been very successful. So my tardiness was well worth it, Mr. Supervisor. I want you to know that this is very important for me to be a sheriff that gives great service, but also protects people. And you know that very well. So I just wanted to tell you that you can share in this victory. We're holding them accountable. The story is developing as we speak. And we know that there could be more victims out there, and we're going to use whatever platform we can to at least give them a voice. That's my first intro.
The first one.
Reference the business of Fenton Township. We have 9 police contracts from the sheriff's office. For background purposes, we have contracts in 2 other townships, Atlas and Vienna. We also have contracts with multiple schools. We have contracts with community mental health. We have contracts with the circuit court, with friend of the court. We have contracts with the health department, Hurley Hospital, and we take our contracts very serious. And I think, as you know, as a county-wide agency, everybody's paying for county services, but sometimes you want additional services. And that's why we have a contract with Fenton Township. And as you are correct, Mr. Supervisor, we've been here since the mid-90s. We give good services. It's now the 3rd sheriff that has been there servicing the contract. We are your police department, and we are very happy with that. We have a great relationship. And part of that service, again, is patrol and our detective services. You share a detective with Atlas Township, who pays 40% of a detective, but you get much more than that. So when you answer a 911 call, and in the last 6 months, which was the start of our fiscal year, to September 30th, you will see that we track everything from our 911 calls to medicals to whatever it is. And we've been able to answer 1,181 police calls in the township within 6 months. That's 1,100 calls for service. It's people called 911. Of those, we have also done 249 traffic stops. We've given 205 traffic warnings. We have issued 54 citations. And one thing we do that's a little bit different than most is because in our trusted trustee, Mark Gopel, who is retired deputy from the sheriff's office, was also a licensed paramedic and was one of my trainers when I became a medic in 1992. And our paramedic division, which are also police officers, when we get a medical in the township, we not only send a county medic, but we also send the Fenton Township deputy because they may be there sooner and we want to get things rolling. So they answered 94 medicals in the last 6 months, just regular police officers, in addition to the county medic responding to either the medical with MedStar or STAT or whatever ambulance service that's being dispatched. We have stats for OWI arrest, DWL arrest, which are suspended license, drunk driving, felony arrest, and warrants. I'm going to leave these stats to you. You get them every month that Sergeant Pritchard is here. But in addition to that, we want to make sure that we're good fiscal partners. And Mr. Broker is always on top of that, and he has been for years. So I can assure you that there's no money wasted. So we track that on a weekly basis, monthly basis. There are times that we are under budget, over budget. But as you know from business, a budget is a moving target, and what we want to do is stay as close to that target as possible, because if we have an incident that takes more personnel than budgeted, then there's a cost for that. But you might add that we just finished March, so we've completed 6 months of the fiscal year, and we are 51%, 51.30 to be exact, through the projected budget. So we're halfway through, we're at 51%, and I think that's pretty good business. That includes not only our personnel fees, but also Social Security, overtime, longevity, medical, post-retirement, optical, dental, life, retirement, workers' comp, unemployment, laundry, and motor pool charges. So when you look at what you get a full-time police department for much less than most people pay for their full-time police department. And when I say much less, I'm talking that you get the entire office of sheriff for the price of 5 deputies and 60% of a sergeant. My report to you, sir.
Sheriff, I appreciate it. Does anybody have a question for the sheriff?
I have a comment.
Okay.
So I live 4093 Minnetonka Drive, and it's a dead-end road, and we see his cruisers frequently. And when my kids are out there, the windows down, they'll stop and say hi and talk. It's a community police force, so we appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That means a lot.
Anyone else?
Mr. Supervisor, if I could, of course, I've been an attorney for almost 50 years now, and a lot of municipal work, and I can tell you, you're doing a great job with the sheriff's department.
Thank you.
I mean, financially and the service you get, really, you're coming out way ahead on this thing.
I don't disagree.
Well,
I
Sheriff,
don't disagree.
I consider you a friend, but most importantly, I picked up the phone, asked you if you'd come out personally and give a report. It's been a while since the sheriff department's done that. I appreciate it. I know that I've raised my family here. I've been out here for 3.5 decades, and I consider this a safe place to be. I think the sheriff's department, under your leadership and previous leadership, has done an amazing job for the residents of Fenton Township, and we negotiated a good contract, and like the sheriff said, they're within budget. I think, Tom, you can lend affirmation. They're pretty
We're
much
almost right on budget for our calendar year 2021.
correct, and that's also historically it's been about the same. So,
And if I may, Mr. Supervisor, that our sheriff budget is $32 million, and $20 million of that goes to the jail operations, which are mostly general funds. But the other $12 million, it goes to the business that we just talked about. So when you look at 365 days with all the different elements and trying to hit that target, that's why it helps to have people in government that also have business savvy, because it is the people's money. So to have Mr. Broker say that we're within budget is a big deal. So thank you so much.
well, I drive up here every day, so I get to see the cars all the time, so I can't comment. But there's always a car somewhere when I'm driving around in Fenton Township, and under your leadership, Chris, you're an amazing leader.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It filters down, and we see it every day.
Thank you.
So I thank you.
You started by thanking us for what we do.
Yes.
I thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
And you said you're proud of us. Well, we're proud of you. It's nice
Thank
to
you,
have
Mr.
a
Tucker.
Fenton Township guy running the show, and the show is being run well.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
just getting started.
I know you are. Get out of your way.
I'm a
Get on
30-year
board.
rookie.
Does the
Yeah.
board have any comments?
One comment, Chris, and it's a practice. I don't know if you do it everywhere, but out here, it seems like a cruiser with one of the 5 officers hits almost every street every other day. Or it might be longer than that, but the people really recognize that. As Ed said, even on a dead-end road, the cruiser is there, and it sends a heck of a good message.
Well, I can tell you that, and Sergeant Pritchard will confirm, is we track dailies that the officers fill out, and there's no idle time unless they're doing a report. And so it's important for people to see the marked car, and there's an argument to say that proactive policing is way better than reactive policing, and so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anything else? Sheriff, I really appreciate
Thank you
your
so
time.
much.
I know how valuable it is, and again, thank you for everything you do for
Thank you. Thank you,
Fenton
everybody.
Township. All right, moving on, the next business in order is public hearings. Tonight we have none. Moving on, the next business is reports. Are there any committee reports to be made to the board this evening? No committee reports? All right, the next business order is communications, none. Moving on to adoption of ordinances, we have rezoning number R22-001. This is Brookwood Fenton LLC, parcel number 06-10-300-012. This is Leering Road, which is just west of US 23, from R3 to PUD. This is the second reading and the vote on the adoption. Again, this is the second reading of the proposed zoning ordinance amendment to rezone property on Leering Road from R3 to PUD, which was introduced at our March 22nd meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I have some suggested changes to the proposed ordinance.
Okay.
Just, I think we need a little more particularity on a couple of things, and a couple of things that might have just been omitted. So, the first thing that I have, item number 1 says that there is going to be a clubhouse of at least 2,500 square feet. Devil is in the details. When is there going to be a clubhouse that is at least 2,500 square feet? At what point in the development? They obviously don't want to do it before the first structure goes in, but we also don't want them waiting to the end. You run into situations where unless you escrow the funds, it just doesn't happen. So I think it would behoove us, in conjunction with the developer, if they're here, this looks like the team here, to tell us what they're thinking, and maybe put something in here that no building permits after X number of months until the clubhouse is up.
Do you have something else, so they can come out and address both, or
Oh,
was that, or would you like them to address each one individually?
I don't care, it doesn't matter to me. Probably easier to remember them just
Yeah.
as we go along.
Is there someone here that would like to address those?
Yeah.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Yeah, absolutely. Luke Bonner. I'm representative of the ownership group on the project. The clubhouse construction, quite honestly, this is kind of our conceptual planning phase. I know the next step for this is the actual site plan process. So in terms of timing and deliverables, I think that was something more that we had anticipated going through on the site plan approval process. But I couldn't tell you, but we want to hit a certain percentage of units completed before we install the clubhouse.
Is 50% a fair number to you?
What's that?
Is 50% a fair number to you?
I think 50% might be a little bit too high. It'd probably be lower than that once we complete a certain amount of units. And really, it's once we complete the units and we have residents living there, we want to time the clubhouse availability for when those residents move
I
in.
want you spending money before you got residents, but
Right.
I want you to have all the residents and no clubhouse.
Right. So again, that was something we wanted to address in the site plan approval process. So I couldn't give you the best estimate right now. It really depends on timing, construction timing, and that sort of thing.
Well, I sit there too. I'm on the planning commission as well.
Yes, I know.
All right, I guess in light of that, maybe we just add language that the timing is established by the planning commission. At site plan review, that we don't have to make decisions. I'm not trying to make him spend money before he's got it to spend, but I've also seen too many scenarios where it didn't happen, so.
Yeah, and just a quick point, the clubhouse is actually a pivotal part of this entire development because it's an age-restricted community. We want to have a lot of programming in the clubhouse. That's part of the attraction for us in terms of inviting residents in, is that they're coming to a community that has programming that is age-appropriate.
All right, my next issue is going to be with respect to water. Is it your anticipation that you'll be putting water lines in when you put the sanitary sewer lines in?
So I'm going to look out of the corner of my eye at the engineer on the project to make sure that I'm not screwing this up. But yeah, we plan on fully developing the site, knowing that you have water and infrastructure projects going on, so that we will be prepared to accept that infrastructure when it's pulled down Laring Road.
Okay.
Or Thompson Road, I
So
should
the
say.
board, with respect to item number 5, I want to put the word entire after the entire development must be connected to municipal water when available, and then add a sentence that the water lines will be installed simultaneously with the sanitary sewer lines. That's okay with everyone. And Michael, this is not open space based at all, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And there was a reference in our material about 54.91 acres of open space. Sometimes we will put that into the ordinance itself. I'm ambivalent about that, and I just raise it for board discussion. That's all I have.
Any other questions or comments from the board? John, would you like to make the amended motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Kate.
Yeah,
I
I was
apologize.
just wondering, do you have any idea what rent will end up being? Is there gonna be a variety? I guess, can you speak to that?
We don't at this time, only because the delivery of this product is still quite a ways away. We still have market studies to complete, kind of a next phase of, what can this market support as we move along? Because I don't think either of us can
sort of predict what's going to happen 24 months from now. So we do still have quite a ways away to go before we figure that out.
But it is rental, not sold units?
So we have, on the business plan, have kind of gone back and forth a little bit. And there is a strong demand nationally for a product that you can rent to provide ultimate flexibility, especially in this age range, to have potentially a second home somewhere else, to be able to have something here and then be able to relocate in winter months as well. That is a very strong demand in this market segment. So that is where we're leaning today. And I think, from a rental standpoint, the market's going to kind of go like this for the next 12 to 18 months before we finally settle in on what our price points will be. And there's a lot that goes into that: construction, pricing, labor costs. We're sort of at all-time highs for everything right now. So is that helpful?
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it's for the applicant or maybe for John as a planning commission representative. I see that there's a lot of units in here. It's fairly dense, and the parking seems to be minimal. And I know that I've visited people in other areas where you might have only 2 spots where you can park yourself, and typically they'll have other areas where visitors can park. I don't see any on this drawing, but is that something that the planning commission deals with at
Yeah,
site plan
what you're
review?
looking at is just a concept plan for the rezoning. They've got a whole lot of work to do before they can get preliminary site plan approval fairly quickly, because there's not much involved with that. But then they get sent off to get all their county permits, and things change. The road commission says, now you gotta put the exit here, things just happen over time, and then they come back to us after all that is done with final site plan approval, and that's when all the minutia is. This is just designed to give you a feel for what they're doing, and you're right, this is dense. There's no way around arguing that compared to what we have around here. But if you'll recall, this property falls within that new category that we created in the master plan that kind of opens things up for mixed kind of uses. And of all the things that you could put into that kind of a district from a rezoning standpoint, this is relatively tame compared to some of the other things that could go in. So it was something that I think we were contemplating when we did that mixed use overlay, new part of the master plan, future land use map. And we are looking at that with respect to the Thompson Road corridor now that water is coming along. So wherever water goes, we're going to be taking a second look at that concept. That's new to us. And thus far, we've seen mostly developments that we would have seen in the absence of that category. So, long-winded answer to your question, yeah, we do look at the sidewalks. Yes, it's dense, but the reason is because it's in that district that allows that kind of density.
Answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? John, do you want to make the amended
Sure.
motion?
Tom, do
please?
you have the changes, or do you want me to give them to you?
I think I have them pretty well, and before I draft the minutes, I'll get them to you.
Yeah,
to
that's
confirm.
fine. I would move that we, let me get to I have a link I could click on, that would help. That we approve R 22-001, which is requesting rezoning from R3 to PUD on the scrolling.
You need the parcel number?
Nah, yeah, throw the parcel number in there. And what I was going to say, on the 8 conditions listed in the proposed ordinance as amended.
Do I have a second?
Support.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Contractor.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
I vote yes. Gopel.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes,
Motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right. Next, under adoption of ordinances, proposed sewer use ordinance. This is the second reading and the vote on the adoption. This is the second reading of the proposed sewer use ordinance, which was introduced at our March 22nd meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I'm talking too much tonight, but I had somebody call me, most of you probably know Brian Schultz, while I was on vacation. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Brian has issues with this, and I think he's spoken with you, Vince,
Yes, he
as
has.
well. I told him I would voice his comments and issues so that the board could have them. I also told him I didn't agree with him, so that's okay, we don't have to agree. Brian was concerned primarily with not so much what we're doing with this, which is mostly directed to the industrial waste component of things. It literally covers everything, so that's true. But his issue has to do with our existing ordinance that requires connection to the sanitary sewer system if the system is located within 300 feet of the property line of the development. Okay, and he thinks that in some situations is unfair to the residents. The example he would cite to you is a 10-acre piece where they want to build way in the rear of the parcel. And so not only would they have to pull it to their site, they have to take it all the way to the back. And if it's not graded in the right direction, it can be a very deep excavation, very costly, when a sanitary sewer system could do the same thing for a lot less. Okay, that's, I'm hopefully paraphrasing his concern as best I can. He has some other specific concerns about scenarios where it's 300 feet away, but it's not in the public right-of-way. And I think historically what we've done, and I don't know if Mike has even been around long enough. Where'd Mike go?
He just doesn't.
Okay, well, I won't ask him. In a scenario where the sanitary sewer is within 300 feet, but there isn't a public right-of-way to get to it. So what we, I think, have done, and I might be wrong, as I was checking with him, we've asked them to go to that adjoining property owner and try and obtain an easement. Obviously, they don't have a heavy incentive to try and work real hard on that. The neighbor doesn't have necessarily an incentive to give it to them. And what do you do if they, quote, can't get an easement? Okay, I think in the past, we've recognized that you can't perform the impossible if it's not in the right of way, even though it's 300 feet, and I think we've let them go on that. Whether we've required them to get a variance, because that was my response to Brian. I said, the things that you're raising, in my mind, can all be addressed through the variance process. If your topography is such that it's unduly costly and all that, bring it to the ZBA and get a variance for it. But I think the policy that we have is a good policy, and that is to encourage connections to the system. And he wanted to convince me that it was all about connection fees and money. And I said, it's not what it is. It's all about all these lakes we have. It's about environmental issues. And there aren't very many pieces of property that we have that isn't in the watershed for some lake. And if you were around, if you were old like me, you were around before the sanitary sewers, you know what the water quality was like before sanitary sewer system went in, and you know what it is afterwards. And the short answer is it's vastly improved. And he pointed out to me that there have been occasions where municipal water systems have overflowed into lakes. I said, yes, the city of Flint does that. It wasn't a lake. It's a river. It's about every other month. But it does happen. But I think overall, I think the policy is a good policy, to try and encourage connections. His alternative is a distance from the structure measurement of 500 feet. So, that's just what his mindset is. But that's not really what we're talking about tonight. That's the ordinance that we already have, we've had for a long time. But it does come into play with that. So I did tell him I would relay those comments. Did he have anything more, Vince, that he raised with you?
Actually, you just saved me about 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, I took
So
20
I
to
was
do
going-
it. but-
So, no, I had 2 conversations.
He said.
Alan or Melissa, is there anything that you'd like to add?
I'd like to add just that, you know, you follow the state standards, or you have the ability to make it more stringent. Or, you know, the Fenton Township ordinance is a little bit more stringent.
Right, and that's by design.
It's been,
Yeah.
It's by design, it's a good, yes, a good thing.
Well, the other thing is too, and I think John said it, is that, okay, we get into a situation where you have to cross boundaries and get an easement and you can't get them. What we ask them to do is give us a letter asking for a variance. We look at it, we determine they can't get there in the public right away, or they can't get an easement, and we then back off and suggest that it's probably going to be a septic system.
And by a variance, Alan, you don't mean a formal variance in front of the ZBA, you mean a
No.
building department variance?
No, we don't need any of that. All he has to do is send it to us. We will look at it, and what that does is give us some paperwork trail so that we know what happened in the past. When we're gone, somebody else is in, and they want to know why wasn't this followed. That's all that paperwork does, okay? The decision was made because of this.
thanks. I apologize to those in the audience and those that are joining us via Zoom. That is Alan and Melissa Lawrence from Lawrence Engineering. They are township engineers. So I should have
We should also point out that this ordinance, section 2 is not one of the sections we're allowed to change. We're supposed to adopt the ordinance verbatim from the county ordinance, and the required connection language is the same for every community in the county. If we have our own built-in policies and practices to handle the exceptions, it's not gonna be in the ordinance, I guess.
Yeah, which caused me to remember one final point that he made that was minor. It has to do with combination systems. I told him I'm not aware of any combination systems in the township. What that is for those, sometimes in the past, sanitary sewer and storm sewer were piped together. And I'm reasonably certain that that doesn't exist in our township, but I did tell him I would make inquiry of the engineers.
No, we do not have a combined system in this township. Detroit does,
Yeah.
but not here.
Yeah. And he was suggesting that there's apparently some language that references it in here somewhere. I couldn't begin to tell you where, but there may be other municipalities that have to adopt this that do have it. So I'm not gonna worry about it. We don't have any.
I think older cities with older systems
Yeah.
tend to have some of that.
Yeah, I think in Rome they kind of did it that way.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, I need a motion to adopt the Fenton Township Sewer Use Ordinance as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discuss? Oh, I'm sorry.
I think we have.
I just
Julia,
had a question.
I'm sorry.
Do you want me to go up to the?
Yes, please.
In light of what Brian was saying and what John brought up, some of these sewer connections and some of the situations you brought up, and I wasn't really clear on the answer, so I'd like to get something clarified. Do the residents have an option to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals if the hookup to our sewer system is not feasible for their project and be an exception?
Yes. They have a right to ask for it.
Okay.
There's no guarantee that they're gonna get it.
Right, I just
But
wanted to
there's-
make sure there was an
yeah.
avenue, because we've come up with so many within the last year that have kind of priced
There's a list.
people
well,
out of the ballpark of building a home.
Yeah, well, and that's probably not something that's gonna be helpful at the ZBA. There's a list of 8 statutory criteria that they look at to determine whether or not they should grant the variance. One of them is, have you created your own hardship? And the fact that it's, you know,
That they bought a lot
yeah, well, that it's expensive to do it.
is not a hardship.
You know, that's part of what happens when you build stuff. Yes, it's an expensive process. And the fact that you can do something cheaper isn't gonna be something you're gonna get a variance. We can say, oh, you know, we don't want everybody saying, yeah, you know, it's cheaper for me to put a septic in than connect to the sanitary, so ergo, give me a variance. So that, I don't think that dog would hunt at the ZBA.
Well, that's kind of what my department needs to know, because we have to fish those out that we
Right.
see.
Right.
regarding valuation of those properties.
Yeah.
Because
No.
we have people that think, you know, okay, I've got a vacant piece of property and it's $60,000. No, I got a deal on this 2-acre piece for $60,000, and when they go to figure out what the hookup is, and the hookup's $40,000, it's not such a good deal anymore.
Yeah. And the example I was presenting to you was just talking about the generic cost between the hookup, which is, I don't know, $7 or $8 grand now, or is it
Mhm.
higher than that, Tom?
Connection fee is 7,600,
7,600,
plus
yeah.
the cost of physically connecting,
Yeah.
which is what I think Julie is referring to,
Yeah.
because we've had situations where the sewer's on the other side of the road, so it's technically available, but it's gonna be expensive to get it to your house.
And so when you get into scenarios where it is, I don't know about where 40,000 falls in the spectrum, but if it's $100,000, you know, to do that because of topography and that sort of thing, you know, that's the sort of thing you can clearly get a variance on, where in between, you know, the few $1,000s difference between the connection fee and the septic system and $100,000 gets you over the hump, I don't know, but.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the tap-in fee, I'm talking about actually,
The actual
like Tom was
physical,
saying, when
yeah.
you have to do a road bore,
Yeah.
that gets into some high dollars, and people don't understand that when they buy a piece of vacant land.
Yeah.
And nor, some of the valuations aren't reflecting it, so that's one of the projects we're doing. So I want to make sure I was on base with what the
Right.
procedures are and what their choices were to do that.
Yeah.
Well, again, just to speak to it, again, that should be part of someone's due diligence process of
It should be.
buying a piece of property, you know you're gonna build a house on 30 acres and it's gonna sit at the back.
All right, so now I'm confused. All right, I don't understand why the zoning board would be involved. It's my,
I don't either. I agree, Mike.
I don't want him mad at me, right? So I don't want to see it at the zoning board. I think the proper technique is to have a waiver process through the infrastructure committee based on Alan's recommendation and not the zoning board. It's not a zoning issue. I don't think the zoning board is the right body to review that.
Is the requirement not in the zoning ordinance?
I was gonna say, if it's in the zoning
Yeah, it's in
ordinance,
the
it would
zoning
have to be, I would refer to our township attorney.
Yeah, what the ZBA does, it allows somebody to violate the ordinance. You can't do a administrative waiver. So if the ordinance says 300 feet and somebody wants a variance from that, they have to go to the ZBA.
Okay.
You can't administratively do that. Not legally, I mean, that's Pandora's box.
But Jack, this is Alan. You know, we've been doing this now for a long time, and nobody has ever said that.
Well, I
Yeah.
can't help that. That's clearly the law, I have zero doubt telling you that.
John, do you know what part of the ordinance, the zoning ordinance it is? Because this is, I mean, the sewer ordinance is a separate ordinance. It's not involved with,
Yeah, I wish I could tell you for sure, Mike, off the top of my head, but I can't. I know the requirement is out there. I thought it was in the zoning ordinance, but.
It's 2.4 of the sewer use ordinance.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, is there anything about administrative waiver in that ordinance?
No.
I would never recommend that because that's Pandora's box.
That's the way the county does it.
Well-
And that's the way we've done it.
I'm not representing the county.
I understand that, Jack. I don't mean to be, you know it better than I do, so I'm not trying to speak the law side.
All right, any other questions or concerns from the board?
Where are we at?
I still need that motion to adopt the Fenton Township sewer use ordinance as presented.
We have a motion and second.
Oh, we have a motion and second? Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, Julia. I didn't look up to the audience and, all right, any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Gopal.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Petrick.
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, moving on to the next order of business is unfinished business. We have resolution number 2022-12, resolution of necessity, State Bank Trail easements. I know we've all reviewed the memo in our packets. Ed Colito is here, I know, to answer any of our questions. we will, I'll go first to the board. Is there any questions or comments from the board? Okay.
Yeah, I guess my only concern was I guess I'm wondering if it's a little premature, you know, like, I guess normally I would imagine, and maybe this is just not having been around as long, I would imagine that we would go try to purchase the easement before, you know, before passing something like this. Maybe it's that we have, you know, multiple communities involved, but it just seemed to me to be a little early. So I guess I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Ed, can you come up and speak to that?
Yes.
And you're not the only one that's asked that question this evening, so.
So this resolution, you're partially correct, it is dealing with 3 different municipalities, and it really sums up all of the collaborative work that's been done together so far for the LAF pathway system, all phases. And this helps us go forward to work with everyone. I don't know if you remember Mo Ryan, but he was involved with the first phase, and he had an issue with his. I showed him what we are now required to do by the state to go through and negotiate easements. And he literally said, wow, I wish this was here when we did ours. It would have made it a lot more simple. So we are moving forward with the easement process. We started with 18 and we've got about 7 left. And so this is actually kind of melded into that because we don't know how long it might take to get all 3 municipalities to agree to the resolution. I wouldn't say we started early, but I would say we're in a timely fix. And in order to move forward with the construction, we're out at about the right time frame of what all the experts have recommended. Steve Sutton's online. Jeff Huda from Norick and Frous was unable to make it, but Steve is online. If there's anything, Steve, you have that would complement or help to answer the question?
No, I think you hit upon it there, Ed, that this is a requirement for the grant funds that have been acquired to date for the project. And as Ed pointed out, we're kind of in a regimented time frame for that process through the state of Michigan, and this kind of is where we need to be with this item.
Ed, I have a question. So have the properties that are not interested in participating, have we already made them offers for their property and they have refused those offers, or does this process have to go forward first before you can make it an offer?
We've kind of melded them together, and so everyone has got official letters that are certified mail, that type of thing, emails, phone calls. We've had a problem. When we first started this, we thought, what's I guess traditionally happening around the state when they do this is about 80% come in easy and 20% come in hard. And so we found the flip to that. About 20% came in easy and about 80% haven't been contacting us. There's one gentleman that lives out in North Dakota, and he's out a lot. He probably is a great outdoorsman or something, but we have good conversations for 2 or 3 days, and then we go cold for 2 or 3 weeks. And he has a concern about the pathway poisoning his well water on his property, which we can't find any documentation that would support that. But in those conversations with him, to alleviate his worries, you know, we have a formal offer that's gone out to him per the appraisals that were done, and we just continue to work that issue. Others have concerns with needing a little bit more work, or a retaining wall, or a driveway, or we're taking out some trees or a fence, can you put that kind of thing back in? And with the process that the state has now, it's all about giving them that appraisal offer. I think on phase 1, they promised a bunch of neighbors different things. We'll do this, we'll do that. Well, here we're working solely with the assessment of value of the land and moving forward. And so we approached it as work with those that are talking to us first and continue to work making those connections with others. So yeah, we're about halfway there, a little more than halfway there, and there may be some challenges. They may start to come in, but it's all so that in the end we meet the timelines of the not grant request, but the grant requirements.
John, I called you and I had a short conversation. Well, actually it was a lengthy conversation, because when I first started looking at the language, I was against taking people's property. Sure. And you kind of walked me through the process of stating that this is something that is normal. Yeah. But I guess I'm still not clear. If I have a piece of property and I don't want to sell it because it could cause a hardship, or I think the value. So with this process, a third party can come in and appraise my property and say this is what it's worth, and under this resolution, they have to sell it to them for that.
Nope.
Okay, so would you explain this to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
explain the board, to the board,
So
that's
wait,
my question.
This is part of the eminent domain process.
Correct.
Okay, so if you're a property rights folks, eminent domain doesn't sit well with you, because it's my property and you can't touch it, okay? Well, that's, as a general rule, works great most of the time, but then there are scenarios where the public benefit comes in, and so there's a whole process out here. It's statutory. You see part of, Ed's been describing part of the process that isn't statutory, you know, and it's all been melded together. There's communications before any of this goes out. You get the appraisals, and if somebody doesn't agree with it, doesn't think that they're getting sufficient value for what's being taken from their land, they can contest it in circuit court. They don't have to sign anything. There's nothing here that.
At their expense?
Yeah, well, yeah. There's cost recovery mechanisms in the statute. I mean, but there are ways to fight this, and I've helped people fight it. You know, and typically what it boils down to is rubles. People, well, that's a bad example, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I wouldn't use the ruble, right?
Dinero, we'll go with dinero. How about that? Usually it's a cash, you know, discussion, but not always. You know, Ed's pointed out some other scenarios where you get creative in how you do it. But all this does is authorize them to go through that process. It does not mandate our residents do anything, and if they don't agree, you know, they have the right to fight it. And now, can they stop it? Ultimately, no, because the eminent domain law says you got to get fair value for what you're giving up. And I'm paraphrasing, but you know, that's what it is, and that's what the fight's about. And most of the time it gets resolved. Most of the time it doesn't go to court. Not always. But all you're doing is a procedural requirement to allow that process to happen.
Yes, Kate?
Yeah, I guess I just want to say, you mentioned like a third party could just do it. I mean, it has to be for a public use usually, I think. So
Right.
I guess that's kind of part of what I see us doing here is weighing the importance of this public use, which, you know, obviously it is a public use, against, you know, how early we want to, but I guess we're running up against the deadline is maybe the thought. Do you know how many of the, like, I guess, remaining reluctant property owners are in Fenton Township?
All 7.
Oh, 7, okay.
You're welcome.
All right, I was hoping to lighten the load there a little bit.
Ed, is there a reason, I also have another question, is there a reason that all 3 communities are combined together? Because to me, to vote on something for my residents of Fenton Township, and that's what this board does, we're being tied in with 2 other communities. Is that a necessity that's required? Or is it out of convenience? What is it? Because to me, this board should vote on what we would like to do for our 7 Fenton residents. So I just question that. Maybe that's I don't know if that's a legal question or.
A lot of the statements in the resolution tie together a lot of the agreements that have been made by the 3 municipalities for the LAF pathway. And that shows when we write grants, when you have that kind of collaboration, our 5-year Parks and Rec plans are a part of that as well. I think that was started probably 10, 15 years ago to get those in order. And that's another requirement now with the DNR grants is that all the municipalities have them. So I think what that process that we talked about earlier, John, was you're just allowing Southern Lakes Parks and Rec to enter into that process for your residents. Fenton would do it for theirs. Linden doesn't have any in this gig, but everything else in the resolution shows that they're tied in to the necessity of the pathway, the public good, and when we go out for grants and they see that kind of collaboration, it does score more points. Grants are always done in all these different categories to get you points, and the collaboration with the local municipalities, more than one, scores high in almost all grants.
Yes, Kate.
One last thing, I guess maybe this is a question for Tom, or I'm not sure, but have we heard from any of these property owners?
I'm not aware that the township's been contacted.
Okay.
So.
Question for John.
Yes, Mr. Vogel. Trustee Vogel. John? Trustee
Question
Vogel
for you,
has a
John.
question.
If this resolution tonight gets passed, is this is this the point where now the people, the Fenton Township that are against this, the property owners, the 7 or 8, if this gets passed tonight, is this now the point where they will start having to spend money out of their own pocket to defend it?
No. No, this is step 1 of 100 or so.
Okay.
You know, it's a procedural
I understand.
part
but
of the
my point
eminent
is
domain
we're talking
statute.
about-
But you know, typically, you know, what happens, a lot of times, there's commercial real estate people get involved, you know, when you're talking about bigger easements over longer periods of time, and they work with folks long before you get to any of the real fist fighting. You know, I've seen it going on for 2 to 3 years. For well, the one I was involved with is the Dort Highway extension to Baldwin Road. Okay, I had somebody that was involved in that. You know, we go through the process, and that was without litigation. I know from my time in circuit court, and Ed doesn't want to hear any of this because, you know, you don't go without the easements, and that's, you know, there's a inertia that happens that causes things to settle because you got to get the easements to make it happen. So, but yeah, to say you got to start spending money right now, no. This just allows that process to move forward, and it can be as short as tomorrow, and it can be as long as 3 or 5 years out.
What can be as short as tomorrow?
The process of valuing and acquiring the easement. You know, you get an offer and you say, hot dog, now
I
go
guess,
buy-"
okay, so they get an offer and they still don't want it.
Yeah,
Then what?
they say no.
Okay, and then what? Now they gotta, now we're gonna have eminent domain?
Usually there's
$10,000.
there's an exchange back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And if the party seeking the eminent domain gets to the point where they don't think that those kind of discussions are productive, then the lawsuit starts at that point. It's under the statute, that's just how it works. And then they gotta start spending money.
Okay, well, you know where my concern is.
Yes, sir.
I'm a property rights guy.
Yeah, I understand.
And so, I guess at what point do we move this along, but then stop to the point where we're saying we're gonna forcibly take this piece of land from you?
Yeah, well, we're not involved with it after tonight. It's not our issue, other than it's our resident. And the other thing I'll tell you is that every one of us has this kind of a scenario in front of our property.
I understand.
It's where the road comes. The difference is this is for a bike, but that same process applies there. Now,
Understood.
we avoid all that by putting the right of ways in.
You said after tonight, this doesn't involve us.
No.
So, didn't you just say that?
Yes.
Okay, so at what point do we as the board take steps to make sure that people potentially are not gonna get their property taken?
If we vote tonight, we're out.
Is it my understanding that?
No, yes, that means we're.
No. Let me interrupt, and if I make anybody mad, I have spent 20 years plus sitting on this board, fighting Linden, Fenton, Argentine, Mundy, to stay out of our business. And we've got this project. You know, this isn't even what Southern Lakes Park and Rec was formed for. If you look at it, they were gonna do community ed. And one of the biggest school districts still does their own, but they love Southern Lakes Park and Rec. Fenton loves Park and Rec. Our citizens voted against this. Now, I know, but I think there's probably enough people that voted against it that would make a successful recall. They voted against the trail. What benefit that we might live long enough to see does Fenton Township get? When I asked the question last time, they said, we're gonna build you a walking trail from the city of Fenton all the way down to Thompson Road so you can walk 3/4 of a mile up Thompson Road to give your dog exercise. Now, you've already walked 3.5 miles to get there. So the dog probably has his exercise. If he doesn't, he'll get it when he goes back home, if he doesn't die. Why do we even consider giving some other entity our power? If it needs to be condemned, then let's have I told Vincent, clean it up. The intestinal fortitude to do it as Fenton Township. Not a bunch of people that could give a crap about Fenton Township. Now, if you want me to go into specifics, I've got a whole list. One of the pushers of this wouldn't even, their citizens voted against joining Southern Lakes Park and Rec. But they've been coerced, harassed, whatever adjective you might want to use, and you could probably use a softer one than I am, to be part of this initiative. What good does this do Fenton Township? I know what they say. And the only way I might get recognized if somebody comes over and urinates on my grave by the time there's anything for Fenton Township. So what I'm saying, if this is so holy, excuse me for using the word, then let's say if they need to be condemned, Fenton Township will do it. I don't need Southern Lakes, Argentine, Linden, or Fenton telling me what to do for Fenton Township residents. It's asinine. And if I don't shut up, I'm gonna break the promise I made to our supervisor. But think about it. If we need it, then pass a resolution that empowers Fenton Township to do it, not some outside entity. Because if you don't want to protect the people's rights, then we shouldn't be sitting on this board.
There's two things I want to say. Well, first of all, to the public, this is what makes a great board. And I mean that. This kind of discourse to me is healthy. But what I meant by, I think what Trustee Gopal was saying is that if we vote yes today, that means we're out of it. We can't do anything to protect our residents. And I agreed with it. And you said no. I just wanted to clarify that. Is that what you were asking?
That's exactly what I'm asking.
Okay, so if we vote yes on this tonight, we no longer can protect the residents, the 7 residents that want it.
You're in agreement with that?
Yeah.
We would convey that power over to Southern Lakes Parks and Rec.
Well, I don't think we have that power to begin with.
In
We're
this
not conveying
instance.
anything.
Well-
We're giving them authorization to proceed under the statute. The statute is what
Right.
gives the power. And you know, Bob, I know you and I feel differently about
Oh,
pathways.
definitely.
And I can talk all night, and I'm not gonna change your mind. I don't want to. You're entitled to that opinion. I don't disrespect you for it. We just view it differently. But we're not allowing any municipality to come in and tell us to do anything.
Did
I'm
you
sorry.
read the resolution? It named the municipalities, and all of a sudden, a strike of lightning has empowered Southern Lakes to do it.
Well, that was
They are the ones that are gonna be, but we're there before them because we gave them the power. I'm not saying, because I know I'm probably wrong about condemning it or not, but it's just that the entity outside of the township should not be the one pulling the trigger. If I have something like this happen in Fenton Township, I want them to be able to walk up to me and say, why did you do it? And I don't want to be able to say, I didn't do it, Southern Lakes did. No, that's not what we got elected for. And please say something before I keep going.
That would be
I
disrespectful.
wanna really
Kate,
quick
go ahead.
just agree with that sort of part. I think that if functionally, if we're giving power over to Southern Lakes and Parks and Recreation to do this, I mean, this is our last say in it, and I'm not, it's not that I'm categorically, unwilling to do that for this, it's that I guess not having heard from, or even, as far as I know, reached out to the property owners, I feel like it's a little bit, I'm not sure I'd say cowardly, but just that I'd like to hear what their problems are from them, or at least give them the opportunity to do that before we
Transfer the,
permanently give up our ability to.
well, Bob and I disagree also. I
Do
love
that,
Bob,
go
I
ahead.
love you, but I believe in, I love to, when I travel a lot, I love to be somewhere where I can jump out of the hotel, get on a bike, rent a bike, ride through. But, after hearing the conversation tonight, I think that both trustees have brought up something that concerns me, and that is, before we know what our residents want, we are really kicking the ball to someone else. And I think we were elected to do a job, and that was to take care of our residents. And at this point, I support the bike path, I do. But again, we were elected to do a job, and that job is to protect the residents. And if we have 7 of our residents that are saying that they don't want to sell under no circumstances, then maybe we should be the ones that has the guts to say, we're gonna take your property, or not. That's just my feeling. I don't know.
Do we know that?
So-
I don't.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
so-
asking.
As a member of the Southern Lakes Parks and Rec Board, as one of the 2 Fenton Township representatives, I would say that we have talked about this a lot. And I'll tell you what, when the word condemnation of someone's property comes up, I'm like, oh, whoa, I can't authorize that. I mean, I agree, that's not what we're here for.
No, we're not.
Right, but there is a process underway. There are experts involved, there have been appraisers. I would say, knowing some of the limited information, that I don't think all 7 of these Fenton Township residents are refusing. I think there's some challenges in communication. I will say that 1 or more of them are coming back and asking for things that are unreasonable. They're looking at this, so there's, 2 sides to every coin, right? So, the township or, LAF, Southern Lakes, makes a reasonable offer to them, and they come back with something unreasonable. So I understand we're looking at it from one side, saying, we can't be the bullies, but we also shouldn't be bullied. So
Yeah.
there is a process in place, and Ed could bring far more information to us and explain exactly where he is on each of these, if that's what needs to be done. But I don't think we're looking at condemning property of 7 property owners. I don't think we're anywhere near that.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing that comes up, and Christine says it well, we have no idea what they were offered, what they said. We're using experts that were selected by the group that wants to do it. We've got an expert seated right there that could go out and look at the 7 properties and tell us what it's worth. Does anybody know, other than the secretive group from Southern Lakes, on what was offered, what was told to put somewhere where the sun doesn't shine?
Until the lawsuit gets filed, it's just an.
Yeah, and when you file a lawsuit, John, I've got one going right now, and the guy said, you got a good lawsuit, let's pursue it, I'm gonna save you a lot of money. Well, I haven't seen anything saved, but I know the amount of money that's went the other way to keep his engine running. So when you say it's not gonna cost them anything,
Oh, I never said that.
I know. Now, if Southern Lakes says we'll pay for your attorney to sue us, now maybe that should go in this resolution. But I doubt if they wanna sign it based on that.
Vince, that's part of the statute that the state has right now. Whether Fenton Township or Southern Lakes Parks and Rec goes through this process, it's a prescribed process that we have to follow step by step. The assessments on the property were done by your tax assessor, working with our expert. It was a great help. She did great. Those properties that came in over $10,000 per the statute had to have a special assessment done by,
And who did that?
I don't know the name of the firm.
So you're working with an entity we don't know.
You don't know, correct? But again, whether it's the township or Southern Lakes Parks and Recs, it's a prescribed process as a part of the statute from the state. And right now, all costs are borne on the project, fundraising for the project to pay for them. I'm not sure if Fenton Township did that, where those costs would be. And in the statute, it does have, I think John mentioned, their ability to reclaim their attorney's costs if they do win.
Yeah, if they win. They're not gonna win. We know that going in.
Julia, were you involved in this process?
I was in the very beginning of the process. Southern Parks asked me to do appraisals on the property. When you're looking at what an easement strip of property instead of a whole property, there's not a lot of comps. So you have to do some allocation and some retraction and things to come up with a general value of what you think that easement value is going to be. And so yes, I did those on all the properties. I submitted them a year ago maybe to them, and that's about all I've done. I have a suggestion, if I may.
Love to hear it.
I think there's a lot of controversy in, it comes up as being the 7 holdouts are Fenton Township residents, and I think that's part of the problem here of, do we want to do this? And nor I or any of the board members or any other members of Fenton Township have talked to any of these people individually. And I think that's some of the problem of having a mediator for our Fenton Township residents when dealing with the trail system. And I think this should have been put in place a long time ago when we found out we had some issues and people holdouts or had issues that didn't want to sign up for this agreement. And I would like to suggest that we find out who those people are and maybe postpone tonight's meeting till next meeting. Maybe have a sit down with those people and figure out what their issues are so that their concerns are heard by the board that's going to vote on this issue.
Thank you, Julia. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I was gonna ask.
Julia?
Is there?
I'm sorry.
Is there time in the process for us to, I don't know, send out notices, to these people and hold a meeting in 2 weeks and then be able to hear from them? Or are we, I guess, how tight is the deadline actually?
That'd go to Ed.
Yeah, that might go to Steve.
Steve?
I would suggest if you're talking about a month delay, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be either 2 or 4
2
weeks
weeks.
till our next meeting. Yeah.
Oh,
I think we could get the 7 property owners in here with maybe Julie and Ed working together, or however you would, Julia, I'm sorry, however that would like to be. But Steve, what is the time limit you have with the state? You said there is you have some type of time constraint. What is that exactly? The date?
well, it's not an exact date. It's a whole process with the state as far as the project is concerned. So we have various deadlines to meet. One of them is the certification of the right-of-way. I don't have that date in front of me, but I can tell you that I'm sure that if we're only talking about 2 weeks to a month, I'm sure that could be programmed in. To Ed's point earlier, because I've been a part of a lot of these meetings, is that we have had various discussions with folks, and aside from the gentleman who lives out of state, I'm guessing that the rest of them probably would, be in attendance if they were asked to give their opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Steve.
What's
Does,
that? Julia, can you do me a favor, please? Can you get the estimates on the assessments that were given to Southern Lakes? Can you get me a copy on my desk tomorrow morning?
I will try and find them. Like I said, it was a year ago, so I think Tom may have them as well. I should have
Ed, you would
somewhere.
have
I
them,
usually
correct?
don't throw anything
Yes.
away like that.
Ed, will you email them to Bob?
Julia gets me.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
should have it in a spreadsheet somewhere. I will find that for you and get that to you, but I think that would make a lot of the controversy, although we have different opinions on the board, I think the biggest thing is the board meeting with these individuals that are holding it up and figuring that out, because my personal feeling is these people are individuals and they're getting bombarded by this. They may feel like they're getting bombarded, I should say, by this conglomerate, thinking they want to take their land, and if they at least have a voice in the matter of someone listening to them that's going to vote on that, that may ease this pathway for you as well.
All right, we're gonna let Jack jump in for a
Yeah,
second, then we're gonna close this down.
Let me just explain this whole condemnation thing, and it can only be done by a government entity. I can't, as a person, condemn anything. So it has to be a government entity, and what this resolution does, it takes the board and gives that away. So this would be the last thing the board would do. And then the process is, they get the property, it's just a matter of going to court and negotiating the price. So if somebody wants $1 million, but it's only worth, whatever it's worth now, not a year ago, because prices went up, but whatever it's worth, they go to court and they end up paying, but they lose the property. There's no, my experience has been that everybody's lost their property if it's a government purpose. I've not had one where a government purpose and the people get to keep the property, they lose. It's just how much money they get. So, and if the board's gonna meet with these people, it ought to be in a public meeting. You can't, sit down with coffee and donuts, on a Tuesday morning or something, but, so that condemnation process is literally that. You take the property from somebody, and then you go to court to see what you pay them. I mean, that's a real condensed version. And I don't suppose everybody wins all of them, but I've not experienced anyone where it's a real government purpose, and that's what you're saying with this resolution, where the government loses. It's just how much do they pay?
Yeah, I did take a zoning law class, and that's basically my understanding too. It's there's litigation sometimes over whether something's really a public use, but this is obviously a public use. It's just whether we think it's an important enough public use to justify taking the property. And I think to know that, we probably have to find out more about, what is the property being taken mean to the people we're taking it from. And I think the way we have to do that is in a meeting with them here.
With all due respect, you're gonna make a decision if some resident ought to give up some of their property?
I mean, so that's what eminent domain is. I mean,
Well,
I
know,
believe
but
it's sometimes
that's
justified.
the government has to do that, but that's not my decision.
I mean, I believe eminent domain is sometimes justified. I don't believe it's always justified, and I guess
Right,
I'd like
so
to
you
hear
have to
from
make
both
that
sides to
decision
balance
there,
balance whether we're gonna give away the power to make that decision to Southern Parks Lake and Recreation.
All right, I'm gonna shut things down if I can, and we're going to, would someone want to set forth a motion, or do you want me to go with the motion we have, or, Kay, do you want to set forth a motion?
So yeah, I guess I'd set forth a motion to delay consideration of this of resolution number 2022-12, a resolution of necessity, till our meeting in 2 weeks on the 19th of April. And then I guess I don't know if we need something more. I'd like us to notify these 7 property owners, of that meeting too.
if I could, instead of just the 7 that are objecting, why don't you do
Or
it to
all
all
of
of
them.
them?
Yeah, all of them would be good. Every property owner, I guess,
Because
involved.
maybe some of them didn't understand what their options are. Maybe they should have, but maybe not. So I would say, if you're gonna do it to anybody along this pathway where there's an
Mhm.
easement.
People who've already signed,
Yeah.
I mean, they can,
how many properties would we be talking about? Ed, do you know? Give us a ballpark.
I think 17.
17 Fenton Township properties.
Well, 16 Fenton Township, one of them City of Fenton.
Okay, there's a motion. Somebody
I'll
got a second?
support that.
Motion's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Kessler,
No.
Krug vote yes. Reed,
No.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Contract,
yes.
Tucker,
No.
Gopel.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-3.
All right, moving on, the next order of business is new business. We have the proposed Thompson Road Corridor Water Improvement Contract. I'm sure the board has reviewed the letter, contract, and cost from Genesee County. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Any questions at all?
So I guess just, I'm still wondering when we're gonna get like firmer cost estimates and sort of a firmer plan for how we're gonna fund it.
Baker Tilly is still working on
Okay.
numbers. It takes a while. We are pretty close, Tom, aren't we?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we should be pretty close. The numbers that you see there are pretty, they're gross numbers, they're not perfect numbers, but the allocation numbers, we've already, the board's already approved a bond number larger than that. That number doesn't include any of the ARPA funds that we put forth. I should be able to report back to the board, I was able to procure another $100,000 from the county, so
Thank you.
I would probably say over the next couple of weeks, we should be able to have some, or maybe a month, should have some solid numbers for the board, but it's gonna come in way under what we've already, the board's approved for
Okay.
phase 1.
Yeah, thank you. I guess, yeah, it's really the funding piece that I'm still concerned about, exactly how we're gonna fund this, if it's gonna end up, being something the entire township has to, sort of funding, or if it's gonna be the property owners that benefit through connection fees. But I don't think this is necessarily a moment where we can do this.
Spent a lot of time on it. I've been looking at other municipalities. I think right now the township has provided me with 8 different municipalities. I've looked at what they're doing, what their costs were, and just remember, Kay, how lucky we are
To have so much of it more
do it.
by these-
Right, this is a project that the township would not have proceeded moving forward with if it wasn't for the funds that are out there, the infrastructure funds that are available. I understand there's still taxpayer dollars, but at least I can tell you that this board has fought very, very hard with boxing gloves to go out and get our share of that money. So this board has done a tremendous job in doing that. So anyway, we should have numbers for you.
Yeah,
So,
and we appreciate you, fighting to get that money too.
all right, I need a motion to approve the 2022 Thompson Road Corridor Water Improvement Contract as presented.
So moved.
Support. All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Gopel,
No.
Kessler,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Contract.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, next under new business is proposed independent contractor agreement, Cook Excavating, Inc. The board has reviewed the proposed agreement. I'm just gonna take a couple minutes to let our audience and those who are joining us via Zoom that Cook Excavating has been the sole IC or independent contractor for the township since 2014. I've been on the board for 12 years. You always wonder when the same company's doing work for any municipality. I have come to see both the engineering firm, which we have entered into a contract with, and also Cook. Their commitment to the township, their extensive knowledge base, what they do for the township. The township of Fenton has 57 and going to be 58 pump stations. I know I've said this quite a few times, but their knowledge base between Lawrence Engineering and Cook Excavating, what they do, how they take care of it, how they maintain it, I've really come to respect. I have put checks and balances in place when jobs are done, initials are needed on contracts before they even reach my desk for signature. And so I do want the residents to know also that there are no price increases in this contract, and those price increases go back 8 years. I also want the constituents to know that the contract has a built-in $65,000 savings from last year. And how that was done is there was a flat rate that was negotiated for missed digs. Cook Excavating was doing our missed digs for us, and I sat down with Cook and negotiated a flat rate which saved our taxpayers $65,000. That's really all I have to say. Treasurer Tucker, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm in agreement with your sentiments. I think both Lawrence and Cook are an asset to the township. And I think the proposed agreement is something I'll look at.
Alan, is there anything you'd like to add?
I don't think I could say it any better than what you and John have said.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, well, I looked at last year and the amount of rain, and when you look at a sewer system and the rain that this township, and we didn't have one incidence of a backup. Cross our fingers. All I'm saying is that, but they're so good at, and I've actually went with them. I actually got down in the sewer. I wanted to know exactly what they did, and to me it's amazing. The pump stations that we don't have generators. We have mobile generators. They drive all over. They keep our system moving. And again, our system is second only to Detroit. And I've come to appreciate between Lawrence and Cook what they are able to do. And I am certainly recommending. Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
Well, I have a question. Yeah, when was the last time that we went a year without any backups due to rain that were the township's issue?
Most years we usually have at least a couple. It's been a long time since we've had a lot of problems.
Okay.
Because
Right.
Well, we've made lots of system improvements, but to go through a year with no sewer backup plays that were our responsibility is pretty good.
If I can, may I add to that?
No. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding, Alan. Go ahead.
But Melissa, you can.
Okay, I'll let Melissa say it then. Because of what the board has done also on approving some things, some upgrades and things, as you know, those that have been there for some period of time, there was never an instance that we had a big rainstorm that we didn't lose something. And that means backups, which backups are costly, can really hurt you and the residents. What's even worse is that if we have an overflow, that's an overflow in the system. And that gets Eagle involved. We have not had any, zero. And there for the longest time, it was nothing to have several of those a year. So it's come a long way, and it's teamwork.
Thanks, Alan.
That means you as part of the team too.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the independent contractor agreement for sewer maintenance services with Cook Excavating, Inc. as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
Reed,
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Contract.
Yes.
I vote yes. Lorraine, pardon me, Lorraine,
Yes.
motion passes.
Did you get Gopel?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. All right, next under new business is 2022 GCRC dust control contract. That's Genesee County Road Commission. Operations Manager Broker, will you please review?
Yes, I know this was a late add to the packet. The letter dated March 1st, I think is a typo because we just got it in the mail yesterday. But the timing is good to get it done, so they can get it on the schedule. So in past years, the county has 3 applications available. The first one, in late spring is divided 50-50. The one in the fall, county pays for, and if we want one in between in the summer, the township pays. In the last several years, we've opted out of the middle one and gone with just the 2, and it's worked well for most years. Last year, we had a much higher rate of dust complaints than we've had in prior years. So I wanted the board to at least consider the idea of upping the budget and putting that 3rd application in. It is our cost. You look at the chart at the end, let me find here. So the projected cost for for each application is $22,800. The first one is split in half. The 3rd one is all on the county. So we'd be looking at another $22,800 over and above to get that 3rd application. We certainly have room in the budget to do so. If you want to do that, it might cut down on some of the complaints we get as far as the dust on the gravel roads. And obviously, a lot is going to depend on the weather. And that's
Tom, if I may, question?
Yes.
If we approve this extra, $23,000, would we still hold off on that and see how many dust complaints we get before we just automatically kick in the second?
Well, they're asking us to commit now, whether we want it or not. So what we've done in the past, we've always said no, and because they have to order the floor.
Okay, they want us to commit to actually do it.
Either we do or we don't.
Okay.
And because they have to order the chloride.
Okay, thank you.
Well, to follow up on his question, I thought you had some magic that allowed us to kind of punt on it and say no, but if we needed it, we could call them up and they'd get it done. I thought that's what in the past.
On isolated cases, we used to be able to get some of that. It's a little more difficult than it used to be. But as far as, this would be an application on all of our unpaved roads. So on problem roads, we can usually get an extra application here and there. But last year, the complaints were across the board, not just the problem roads. So.
Township-wide, we were getting.
Yes.
Do we know why there's complaint? I mean, we had the same amount of rain, right?
We had more.
So way more rain.
Yeah, we had more.
What's the rain doing that's?
Can I add to this a little bit?
Yeah, please.
The dust on what happened to us, if you remember, we got a lot of rain to begin with, and then it just stopped. You know, no rain, we were dry as can be, and that's what caused the problems with the roads. What Tom is saying is we go ahead and commit to this now. If that happens to us again this year, it takes care of it. Even whenever we didn't do a 3rd application, as I think Tom will agree to this, we had complaints. We were able to survive that because we were lucky enough to get some rain within a couple of days of it, which they won't put down chloride if it's raining. So rain also stops the dust. Right now, the process of what the road commission is trying to do is that they're trying to get all their ducks lined up and make sure this is what's going on instead of us just calling all of a sudden saying, okay, run over to Hogan Road and put down 2,000 gallons of chloride. The other thing I like about this, I believe in here, it says somewhere that they're gonna lay 1,500 gallons per mile. They started with 3,000 or 4,000 gallons per mile, which was a muddy mess. Then they dropped it back to 2,000 gallons per mile, which I didn't like. 1,500 is correct. That's about where it should be. And I think in the process of what the road commission is now trying to do and what you're trying to do, you're going to have dust complaints. That is going to happen. I can tell you that right now. Now, maybe we'll luck out and there won't be as many, but the third application is not a bad thing.
Did anybody quantify the number of complaints that we're talking about?
We did not specifically track them. It was.
Do you have a ballpark idea of what we're talking about? We talk about 10, we talk about 100, what do we?
I'd say 20 to 30.
20 to 30. So $1,000
Complaint.
per complaint.
Well, but remember too, that Tom's telling you 20 or 30, we get the complaints too. So it's not just going into the township office, it's going into the engineering office. So there's quite a few out there. There's a lot of complaints sometimes whenever the dust is getting bad.
Well, we don't care about you, Alan. You can take as many complaints as you want. Do you have a sense of how many you guys have received?
I'm sorry.
Do you have a sense of how many you would have gotten?
It's probably the same thing, you know.
Another
they-
20 or so?
Probably the same people,
Yeah, it could be the same people.
because we refer them. Kay, did you have a question?
Ron, don't you think that's a reasonable estimate? You know, it could be 60 to 80 complaints.
Well, I'm just trying to get a sense. I mean, I wasn't involved in any of it. And we're talking about $23,000, which isn't the end of the world, but it's not chump change either, so. How many years have we actually done a third application?
I'd have to look and see the last time we did 3 because.
We just don't.
I don't think
Always
we
done.
we haven't done it
tried to
since I've
buy
been on
with
the board.
2. And we may get by with 2. It may work just fine if that's what the board wants to do. I just wanna make sure the board at least considered it. I didn't wanna just recommend right off the bat, we don't do it again. But if the board still wants to stick with that approach, we can certainly do that.
I also wanted to ask, I guess, I'm not sure, I guess, how many years has it been the same spread rate in miles per gallon? Cause I guess I'm wondering, you know, did we just get lucky for, you know, a couple of years at this same spread rate, or has it been, you know, a bunch of years where pretty much the same thing was being done with just 2 applications and we just got unlucky last year?
The process has not really changed for a
Okay.
number of years as far as the gallons. I think it used to be, it was always 2,000 gallons per mile. They're proposing the middle one be 15.
For a long time, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Tom said also that normally on any other year, we get around 12. You know, the gross is 24, but the net difference might just be 12 extra complaints. I don't know, I'm not saying I don't wanna do it, I'm just trying to throw everything out there.
So let me get this straight. They're doing it at 2,000 mile. It says spread rate of 2,000 miles per gallons. I don't think that's right.
Gallons per mile.
I think that's gallons per mile. But you're telling me the middle one is at 1,500?
Let's see, you have an option
Right.
of choosing 2,000 or 1,500 on that middle one, which would lower our cost a little bit.
What's the pricing on that?
Well, the cost of 2,000 gallons per mile is.
What we're looking at.
Is what's on the chart, which is the 22.8.
Right. So what's 15?
So we'd take 25% off that.
25% off that probably, if you did just straight math.
And Alan's saying 1,500 gallons you're saying 2,000's too much?
Well, no, 2,000 worked. I don't myself particularly like that. I live on a gravel road. I don't like the 2,000 gallons. In fact, I'd rather they never sprayed it. But In a lot of cases, the homes are on these gravel roads are right next to the road. And you get traffic going up through there and it brings up dust, it's in their home. I mean, it's hard to keep clean.
But you're saying if we can get a different rate at 1,500?
1,500's good.
Okay.
So that would reduce the cost a little bit, let's say about 6,000, 500.
Is there any way
Are
we
we-
could, I mean, even the first dose, if our engineer says 1,500 is good, could we say only give us 1,500 on the first dose and get it cheaper?
No, they're saying the first one and the third one are 2,000 gallons per mile. And we're only paying 50% of one of those.
Okay, so they have money in it, so they're gonna determine what they do.
Right,
Mhm.
but the
Okay,
middle one,
but-
we can choose,
I
the
understand.
2,000 or the 1,500.
And do we know if, is the cost there just the materials, or are we paying for the application too? Cause I don't wanna assume that it's gonna go down and cost more than it actually is.
I don't think there's gonna be a direct correlation like we were thinking, 25%, because I
Yeah.
think there's probably
You know, they have to
the
dry
cost
it
of
and dry
applying
the
it,
same,
and then
yeah.
you've got,
Yeah.
say, 10% of the cost is the,
Yeah, so
Alright.
it'll come down some, we don't really have a clear, probably that would be the upper bound for how much we can imagine. But yeah.
all right, any other questions from the board? All right, I'm gonna read the motion. I need a motion to approve the 2022 Genesee County Road Commission Dust Control Program, including applications of 38% liquid calcium chloride at a rate of 2,000 gallons per mile as follows. One application in late April or early May with the cost divided equally between Fenton Township and the Genesee County Road Commission. One application in late June or early July with 100% of the cost paid by Fenton Township, or we will remove that. Well, I'll just make this motion. This motion is going to include the third application. Cost paid by Fenton Township. One application in mid-September with 100% of the cost paid by Genesee County Road Commission.
So your motion's for 2,000 gallons for the
Well,
second
you know what?
application?
No, this motion is for the 2,000 initial that is paid for equally between Fenton Township and the Genesee County Road Commission. I'm including the middle application.
At 2,000 though.
That's the way it was drafted.
I know, I just wanna know what his motion is.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yep.
Because we talked about doing 1,500, I wanna know.
can I bring something up though? On the actual letter from the road commission, it says this second application is already at 1,500 gallons a mile.
No, it says if the township should feel the need for a midsummer application.
Right, that's what we're doing, right? We're talking about that.
38% at a spread rate of 2,000 gallons per mile, or at a spread of 1,500 gallons per mile.
The same price?
No.
Okay.
Price
but-
per
but-
gallon.
But it's all township costs, so that's why they're leaving it up
So we
to us.
can okay, so they have it in there that they'll do it for 1,500 gallons.
Yeah, 2,000 or 1,500 on that middle one,
Thank you.
which I didn't anticipate when I drafted the motion, that we might go that way, so we can certainly adjust the motion accordingly.
Well, it sounds to me, why don't we try it first with the 15 that the township's paying, even though we don't know what that adjustment's going to be, because it sounds like we don't have the votes for the 2,000 at 22,000, but I'll do it all three ways, so.
I wasn't saying that, I just was trying to
Yep.
understand the motion.
Okay, one application in late June or early July with 100% of the cost paid by Fenton Township at a rate of 1,500 gallons per mile. And then one application in mid-September with 100% of the cost paid by the Genesee County Road Commission.
I'll second that.
Nobody made
I'll
the
move the
motion.
motion.
I'll move the motion. Motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you call the roll?
Lorraine,
Yes.
Patrick,
No.
Kessler,
Yes.
Gopal,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed,
Yes.
motion passes.
There you go.
Did you want 2,000 or did you just not want to do it at all?
I thought we could get away with not doing it at all,
Okay.
or at least see, you know.
Yeah, see it for another
For
year.
another
Yeah.
year, not
Yeah.
permanent.
Yeah, there's-
It's the same price.
Well-
no matter what.
I got some-
No, there's.
No, that's what I brought up, Jack.
Is that, so that's what screwed up?
That's what I was reading, that same price, but they're saying it's gonna be different price.
Yeah.
Now, can we do, kind of online with what you're saying, I would say maybe we'll do this for a year with the third application, see how many complaints we get anyway.
Right.
Yeah,
And
try-
if it's 24, we can probably rein it back because,
Like I said, I've been on the board, what, 13, 14 years? We've never done a third application, so I guess
Right.
this will be a test year.
yeah, I'm just saying, you know, see if this cuts down
Can
on
we
the
try and
extra
get
12
maybe
calls.
a little bit more of a formal count between the two, so we know whether we're getting dual complaints between, you know,
Track names.
track names and how many people are complaining?
Tom?
We can do that.
Yep.
Yeah, Alan, will you do that for us?
And the cost chart,
Will you guys track the names of the people that call with dust complaints?
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
All right, next under new business, we have proposed road improvement project, Bull Street. The board has reviewed the memo in the packet. Operations manager, can you provide some additional
yes,
information?
this is one of the projects we talked about at our public hearing. And we just got the cost proposal yesterday from the road commission. It's for a 2-inch mill and cap on Bull Street, for $55,000. And, since it's entry to the township, I think the road can definitely benefit from that improvement. And I mentioned in the memo, with all the projects we have, if this is approved, all the projected costs are slightly over our budget, but typically a lot of them come in under budget. There's also, I was informed yesterday, there may be some communities who will give up some of their allocation funds without wanting them back next year, which would bring it down even further. So, but I think this is a good use of our funds.
And I will get on the phone. I think last year I was able to get
We got 50,000.
50,000 last year that we didn't have to pay back. I'll get on the phone and see if I can cover the shortage, if there is one.
I was really pleased to see that the prices are good for the 2021 paving season.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
You might want to have them fix that.
Yeah, might wanna make it 2022.
All right, I need a motion to approve the GCRC cost proposal for the milling and paving of Bull Street as presented.
I'll move.
Support.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Contra,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, the next business order is board comment. Is there anyone on the board who has additional comments or concerns?
I would like to hear what Tom had to say at the end of the dust control. He was saying something, he got interrupted.
Oh,
No problem.
Oh, no worries.
I just did quick math. I think Christine did the same thing on her calculator. It is a straight dollar for dollar on that. It's the .66 or 65511 times the miles times the spread rate. So that middle, instead of costing 22.8, it'll be 17.1.
Thank you.
That's good.
when you add that to the,
Better, I'm sure you still good.
thank you.
Well, good, given
Right.
what we already did.
Yeah. Well, I hesitated for you because I thought that's where you were.
I'll find the 17.
Okay.
Oh, I hadn't thought that about that well.
Next business order is public
Maybe we ought to
comment.
go back to 2000 then.
Next business order is public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. We'll now open up the meeting for public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. First, is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak? Yes, sir. Would you please come up to the mic and give us your name, please? All I would ask is that you would limit your speech to about 3 minutes.
Sure. My name's Steve Egelhoff. I live at 13044 Alyssa, and I'm Linden Crossing Association president. First of all, I just want to say, anytime when you have a board that stands in the breach of protecting the citizens from intimate domain and not punting to an unnamed board or Southern Lakes or whatever, I appreciate that. And you guys, you should be applauded for that, because so often government agencies just punch it to an unnamed board, and, you know, then you're left fighting the government to keep your property. But what I wanted to ask is, I know last meeting, you guys approved the zoning for the Brookfield development. And living on Laring Road, that development, like you said, is densely populated. And I estimate that there's 244 units, you know, 1.5 cars per unit. You're looking to dump 350 more cars out onto Laring Road. And you've got T intersections up and down. You've got T's at Torrey, at Jennings, at North. Linden's a four-way stop, and Ripley's a T intersection. You know, when it goes to zoning, I think you said there was one of 100 steps it has to clear to get final site approval. What is the plan? Has there been a traffic study done? Can Laring handle that? It's already a disaster, you know, when kids are getting picked up from school at the bottom of Torrey and Laring. There's school zones, at least 3 school zones on that corridor. What is the plan going forward, or is it just approved? I mean,
We do have our zoning administrator, Mike Dean. I can ask Mike to come up. Would you come up, Mike?
Traffic is one of the big issues, and we identified that when they made their application. We are requiring them to do a traffic study, and that will be part of the determination that when they come through for site plan approval. Prior to submitting for preliminary site plan, they'll be required to submit that traffic study, and we will investigate that as part of our thorough review of the plans. I know we've been in talk with Road Commission about projects that are coming into the township, so they're aware of this project. They are investigating other improvements to that area. We're going through our Thompson Road corridor master plan, which this is part of. One of the biggest feedbacks that we've been getting from the public is traffic and what effect new developments will have on the existing infrastructure. Not just on Laring Road, but Thompson Road, Jennings Road, Fenton Road. So we are aware of the traffic issues. You know, we have very few straight roads in the township to begin with because of all the lakes. So development in one area is going to affect development in other areas. We're working closely with the road commissions because we're a township. Road commission is the one that controls the roads. But I guess that's a long way of saying we're requiring a traffic study. It will be part of the site plan review.
Thanks, Mike.
So
Did that answer your question?
I have a question. So Mike, could you expand on that just a little bit as to what that means? So we're gonna get a traffic study, the planning commission is gonna review that.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you could explain a little further, can the planning commission then ask the developer to pay for some of those road changes that might be suggested in the study?
Sure. And look, the township, the planning commission has a responsibility to the residents to look at the level of service that developments are going to be bringing into the township. We've had similar requests in other parts of the township. The traffic study said, all right, this development is going to change the level of service from a D to an F. Well, we can't approve that. And so it's up to the applicant to be able to look at what those recommendations are to get to what a reasonable level of service is. And it's either us working with the road commission and MDOT or the applicant making the improvements that are necessary for a development to move forward. So can we require, I don't know. I think off-site requirements, right? I don't necessarily say that we have the ability to require them, but we do have the ability to say, well, we cannot approve a development until improvements are made in X, Y, and Z. You know, and then that's a partnership between the township and the road commission to look at what those, you know, improvements are, get those on their long-range plans. But again, this all gets back to us working closely with the road commission to begin with and keep them informed about developments that are looking to come into the township. In this area, I know that they've begun investigating, putting in roundabouts in certain areas. I think Torrey and layering is one of the areas they're looking at, based on knowing that there's developments coming, especially along the water line.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to address the board?
Thank you. I'm Sue Newman. I live at 13012 Leo Court, Linden Crossings. I'm the new secretary for the Homeowners Association, and I too came to talk about the Brookwood development. My concern with the traffic flow is the traffic that's going to put on North Road and Torrey Road, which are roads that are very much sandwiched with residential areas. Doesn't involve me personally, but I travel on those roads enough, and I'm here to tell you, I go with the speed limit. I'm not a putzer, and I have had, I don't know how many people pass me speeding on North Road already. And so having somebody that's even maybe slower driver than me, I just think traffic is going to be a huge issue with this development. It's something that needs to be considered, because if you're going into Fenton, you're going to go on Torrey Road or you're going to go on North Road if you're coming off of Laring there. You are. So that's a concern, and I hope the board does take that into strong consideration with moving forward on that. My other concern is two things. One, that I didn't realize until tonight when they mentioned it, that that it'll be rental as opposed to purchase properties. I think that brings a different level of responsibility or ownership in terms of who owns those properties or cares for those properties. And then my other concern is services to be provided to that. We're increasing it by what? We're going to have 224 units, so we're going to have maybe 500 to 800 more people, depending on how many. Yeah, it's older, maybe you got 2 people, but could you have an older child with you or something like that? We got to remember that then we're going to increase our ambulance services and our other services. So does it balance out? Is it going to be a worthwhile investment? And will the stress be worthwhile to our community, especially in that corridor where we're already sandwiched with our traffic patterns? So, thank you.
Sue, thank you very much. Anybody have any questions or would like to address Sue?
Related to that, I was curious how much, I guess, annual revenue, like we expect from tax revenue from that development. I mean, maybe we don't really know because it's just the project's not far enough along yet.
That's a Julia question.
Well, tax revenue, if it is a rental versus a sale, the schools will make more money because the additional 18 mills that each of those homes will pay.
Be non-homestead.
When you're looking at it as a rental for seniors, it's not going to be a normal, okay, this is a rental house for anybody, it's $1,000. These people are going to be investing in a clubhouse and so on and so forth. You're going to probably get higher rents for those, which is going to bring that level of person that's going to be living there up a little bit, because when you get an elderly person like Vicinity Gardens, or I know it's not assisted living, but that you've now got the independent living, and those are apartments that start out at $3,100 a month. And they go up to $5,500 a month, depending on what services you want from them. I don't know if this development is going to offer services like that community, but I'm going to assume if it's going to be rental, they're going to have their own lawn companies. The tenants aren't going to be paying for their lawns, so it's going to be kept up by the owners of the community, as well as some other things in there. So the township doesn't make any more money in that, the schools do, to answer your question.
Okay, so maybe not so good for affordable housing, but good for the schools.
No, I think if it's a senior community living, we don't have any of those in the township.
Okay.
I think there is a need for it, whether it be rent or sale. They're looking like the ones that they're putting, well, Del Webb has had the one on Baldwin Road for several years. But the units are going to be kind of like that. Most of them are going to be built on a slab. There's not going to be a basement because they're catering to the older community with no stairs.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to address the board? Hearing none, we'll move to Zoom. Is there anyone that's attending this meeting tonight via Zoom that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items? All right, hearing none.
We've got a hand up there,
I see
sir.
a hand up.
Where?
On Zoom. We've got- Somebody wants to speak on
Upper
Zoom.
left.
Oh, okay. Hand in the upper left. Sorry. No names coming up. Would you like to address the board?
Jacob.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can now.
Jacob Mauer, I think.
All right, yeah. Hi, my name's Jacob Mauer, resident here in Fenton Township, and I just wanted to, there's a question earlier regarding the timing of the resolution of necessity for that pathway project. And I just wanted to note that, you know, the progress for the pathway along the Silver Lake Road has been actively underway for like over 8 years with hundreds of resident petitions in favor of the project, fundraising over $2 million in grant funding, and you know, all of this is coming to where it needs to be obligated in the next 6 to 12 months. So I would just also say that, you know, Southern Lakes Parks and Rec, which includes 2 members of the Fenton Township Board, have been in these discussions for many years. I'm a little surprised that it seemed like the sentiment was we didn't know what was going on as a township when the conversation has been going on for many years. But I'm not saying I'm against involving the residents a little bit more that are along the route. I'm just saying that I think we should just remember that this project has been going on for a long time, and it didn't just come up tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that's attending this meeting via Zoom that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items? All right, hearing none, if there's no other public comment, it is now 8:35 exactly, and if there's nothing else, I say good night, and the meeting is adjourned.